Yesterday, I shot this video of what I was going to do working on Ragnar, the Prancing Moose. And in my wisdom, really low production quality. There's no production staff in any of this. We're a one-shoot operation. We're the Ed Wood School of cut. Perfect. Next. And that didn't work out yesterday. I did not shoot video. I shot a photograph. So, look at that. There it is. Just going to use it. It's a great photo of last night. It was cold, so I'm happy to be out here today. Today, I actually didn't have time to work on the car, so I'm going to bring you up to speed of what the repairs were yesterday. Back in December, on a very cold day, I had driven the car. It had completely warmed up, as this car usually does. It never gets to the midway on the interior thermostat. It's just a little bit below it always, maybe an eighth of an inch. It had warmed up and I ran in to do some errands. It was a brisk, cool day with a really stiff, cold wind. And the car had completely warmed up, went inside, ran some errands for 15 minutes, came back out. When I started, I had a check engine light. And that code was P0128 Coolant Thermostat. It happened again on Valentine's Day, February 14th. And the code cleared, didn't come back, no issues. Same thing happened, exact same type of weather day. Drove the car, it warmed up completely to its normal, and then went in, ran some errands with the front of the radiator facing a brisk Colorado chill of a wind. And when I came back out to start the car after 10-15 minutes, threw the P0128 coolant thermostat code again. But when you look that up, it says coolant temperature below thermostat. So in my mind, I was thinking, well, it was facing a brisk wind, so maybe the radiator just cooled off more than the thermostat did sitting on the top of the engine block. So that was my thought. I went about it my day. It cleared both times with the Autel immediately. Didn't really think much about it. And then I'm thinking, I'm going on a road trip. I did a little bit more researching on these P2 Volvos. And Volvo Brett had told me some stories of how fast these things overheat. All right, here's what the engine bay looks like today. Yesterday, I replaced the thermostat, the entire housing. It's sitting in there. Obviously, a new silicone IPD hose, got some blue bits. Put another, this is the hot return coming out of the thermostat unit into the radiator, and coming back is the cold return from the radiator. I also got the blue silicone with the band clips. So that was replaced yesterday. But I thought this was going to be a pretty easy job, because when you look at this, there's I think that's a T30 sitting there, and there's another one down below. And I was thinking, I can get into these somehow. There's another one down in there. That is not the bolts you're taking off. That's not where you're working. And Volvo Brett told me, happened to see him yesterday at Cars and Coffee, and he said, be really careful when you're pulling out the T40s. You're going to have to figure a way to get straight in there. You do not want to strip those. Those are going into the head or the block, whatever. I think they're going into the... You don't want to strip them. They're really hard to get out. They're hard to get access to. Don't mess with that. So make sure you get something straight that you can get in there. And he mentioned, just briefly, not going to be able to use a socket. It's not going to fit and get around everything. So I can show you what I'm talking about on this old unit. Yeah, there's your T30s in front. They're still sitting there. But that's the whole... Oh, wait, it sits like this. That's the top one. You can sort of see it. It is right there next to the sensor. But down below is another one hidden here. But let's talk about a couple things real quick that are going to be tips for you in how to get in here. This turned out to be a much bigger job than I was anticipating when I got home and realized I'm working on two bolts I can't even see. Serpentine belt's off. Obviously, I said that before. Power steering pump. In the Vita manual, it's called the servo. Power steering pump is off. It is sitting down there, waiting to go back in. Interesting is I look down in here and I see this. Don't know what the heck that is, but it looks like some sort of a gasket for the thermostat has broken a long time ago. There's pieces of it sticking through here. So not really sure what that's all about. It looks like something that goes on the thermostat itself. So maybe that was the problem. Glad I'm changing this. But now I have access to get in here. You can see the lower bolt. It's down in there where there, I'll point with the orange. Down where the orange is at, it's underneath there. And up there is my top one. All right, I got this thermostat unit sitting upside down so I can get a good angle here. And I'm going to shine some light in there. See the bits? That was exactly how I found it when I pulled the hose off. So obviously it's upside down, but that gives you a good angle to look inside there. Those little rubber seal bits are between the two halves. and clear on the thermostat unit, and clearly that was not allowing things to close all the way. So that was my problem. All right, first tip is you're going to have to figure out how you're going to get into those two T40 bolts on the back half of that unit, combo unit. So I knew this is not going to work. It can't get around the housing. It's not going to get through there. It's not even going to make it in there because it can't get a good angle. You'll just strip these out. And remember, Volvo Brett said, do not strip these. They are not fun to get out. There's very little access. So don't do that. What I did is I saw a video that said you could go to Home Depot and get a DeWalt driver T40 that's extended, like a couple inches, 3-4 inches. So I did that. Went to my Home Depot here in town. They had it perfect in a T30 and smaller. Nothing bigger than a T30. So T40 wasn't an option. So I left there, and right as I was about ready to leave, the guy goes, hey, wait a second. I think we can rig something up. And he had a packet of these DeWalt little tiny drivers. I think these are 1/4-inch drivers that are all Torx heads, different sizes, and T40 happened to be the biggest. I'm going to set this over here so I don't lose them. So T40 is in here, and he had this separate little, when it's a retainer, you pull this back to keep it in there, and it's even magnetic, so it'll hold the bolt. So this little extension combo worked. This little tiny 1/4-inch drive T40, and then this extension, and it's got a 1/4-inch drive, so I had to go get my Imperial, whatever they are, 1/4-inch out, and then put it on my 3/8-inch driver, and with this, I could get into those two bolts that are in the back. Worked perfect, but wasn't planning this. This has to come off. This was put on almost 2 years ago. My dad and I replaced the power steering pump on this. The power steering pump has to come off. The accessory belt has to come off, obviously, if that's coming off. Much bigger project than I was anticipating. There's nothing super complicated about it. There's some just uncomfortable moments to it, which I'll get into in a minute. So when I went to put this back together, I started threading it, and I'm like, oh my god, this is tight. I am cross-threading this. I'm so afraid of this thing. Get these out of the way. Get this all disconnected. Take the bazooka tube off so you can get this thing at the right angle to get it to go square. But I kept tightening it, kept tightening it, kept tightening it. You realize it says on Vita that this is supposed to go until they're about the tip of the housing is about 3 millimeters from the unit. And I chickened out. I was like, oh my god, no way, this thing is tight. Started it up, got everything in here, got everything, bled the air out of the coolant, got this back in, got that, thought I had bled the air out, started the car up, and this thing leaked like crazy. I had stuff going everywhere. So had to go tighter. And I did that. It's difficult to turn it, but it's not getting harder. So I kept going. I'm like, oh god, I'm going to kill this unit. This has got to be cross-threaded or something's wrong. But it was just the coupling, the hydraulic coupling, and its plumbing fit, I guess as you would say, or coupling fit, hydraulic coupling fit. And it didn't get any worse. It just was difficult to turn. It kept going, kept going, kept going. And I'm like, okay, that's got to be within 3. Started wiggling this. It's firm. Started the car up. And the first thing I noticed, besides the fact that it wasn't leaking, is that the whine was gone. The really high-pitched little whine that had, ever since we had this thing in there from 2 years ago. So I think it was just not completely pressing on that O-ring. The O-ring I did replace. The one that came out was black, and it was shredded to bits. It came off as just a little itty-bitty outline of a ring that was still in there, and I reached in and pulled it out with, just reached in there and pulled it out when this came off the first time today or yesterday. But when I went to go put it back together, on the tip of the coupling, hydraulic coupling, it lack of a better way to describe it, was like a little dark area that looked like a little quarter pipe ring around the ridge. And first I thought it was just some residue or just grit or something from it working. It turns out that's actually the old ring. It had completely reshaped it, and I figured that out by looking at some Google images. So I used this and literally pried that thing off, and it just split in half and came off, and then it was just a 90-degree angle to the tip. And I put a green one on because all the Google images showed a green one. So I got one of these HNBR O-rings, found the right size, got it in there. It went in better. I was able to get this in and get it all the way to the 3, stopped, and everything's working fine. The other thing I'm going to give you a point on these is that this coupling is a 16 millimeter. And my Pittsburgh whatever wrench set from Harbor Freight doesn't even have a 16 millimeter. So there were two options. 17 can use, you just gotta be really careful. It will go on there and it will turn it. Again, it doesn't get really super tight until you get into this distance where, you know, I'm inside that 3 millimeters. But the other option was a 5/8. Will go on there. You just got to get it just right and kind of wiggle it in. It will go on there and you can use it. So that was that, all set up. The other pointer I'm going to give you is when you're tired and you're working late at night because this project went longer than you thought it was ever going to go. And you go in there and you got the car up in the air and you're going to go from stop to stop on the steering wheel and bleed the power steering fluid in the lines because it's been open forever because you took forever. Be sure to put the cap on this. And I'm not going to tell you. I'm glad I don't have any video or photo of that because it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. I still got stuff I got to clean up under the car. Don't do that. That stuff's expensive. Put that cap on there because even if the car turned off and you're just going stop to stop manually with the front end up in the air, it spit stuff everywhere. It was a oozing mess all over the floor. So don't do that. Be smarter than me. That's it for now.